Let me introduce David Epps, our COO and Vice President of Marketing in the back there. You've met Matt Garvey, our VP of Communications, and they're part of the team that I believe is the best in the bowl business, and look forward to hosting you and the Georgia Bulldogs, the team, the administration, the staff, Kirby, Josh, their families. We really believe in Southern hospitality, and for us, it's going to be kind of interesting because in 2020 we really didn't get a chance to host Georgia like we wanted to with COVID. So let me also, I don't see Claude here, but want to say hello to Claude. Claude is someone that I go all the way back to 1980 when Herschel was playing here, and I was with Adidas, and he helped me with a credential for the Heisman Trophy. So I want to see Claude and tell him hello. Let me thank everybody here for coming. You guys, I know you got a lot to do and probably here to see Kirby, but we got a little business before. If I can talk a little bit about, the bowl and how excited we are to host number 1, Georgia, and number 4, Ohio State. This is the third time we've hosted the CFP semifinal, and every one of those years in 16, 19, and now 22, we've hosted the number 1 team in the country. So we're really excited to host the SEC champs and number 1 Georgia Bulldogs. Congratulations, Josh, on record sellout in one day of 13,000 tickets. I don't know that that's ever been done before for a bowl game, so I know he needs probably about 15,000 more like I do. But we have added 2,000 more seats beyond the expandable seats to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, standing room only wise. So we're going to be close to, if not break our record that we hold for the 2019 number 1 LSU against number 4 Oklahoma CFP semifinal game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Congrats to Kirby and Josh, the Bulldog team, the administration staff, for just a tremendous year. To be number 1, and I know it's somewhat taken lightly around here because the success, but to be number 1 after finishing number 1 in the country, and Kirby would tell you, probably has numerous times, they're not defending national champions. This is a whole different team. And so to see 15 guys go to the NFL and bring a whole new team together to be number 1 again is it's an incredible accomplishment. Hadn't been done very often, and probably won't be done too many times in the future either. So great credit to Kirby, and congratulations on winning the SEC Coach of the Year as well. Kirby is special to us individually. Not only is he a great guy and a great person, but Kirby is the only player, little trivia for you guys, you can win some beers on this. Kirby's the only guy that's played in our game, won our game as a player, won the Chick-fil-A kickoff game in his first game coaching here at Georgia against North Carolina, and also won 2020, won the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl as a coach. So now all he has to do is win our Peach Bowl Challenge golf tournament, which he's finished second or third, I think, a couple times. Is that right? Yeah. So he's got a little work to do on the golf game, I guess, but I'm sure he'll figure that out as well. History-wise, this is special for us with the Peach Bowl. I started this job back in 1998, and we had, as I mentioned, Kirby and Georgia play against Virginia. Georgia was ranked number 19 in the AP, and Virginia was number 13. And the AJC wrote that the Peach Bowl is Georgia is going to a third-tier bowl game. So we've come a long way in these many years to host now number 1 Georgia in the CFP semifinal game. So quite an accomplishment by our board, our staff, which is the best in the business, our volunteers, and all the corporate support and our stakeholders that we have in Atlanta. Champ Bailey, who was the MVP of that game, interesting enough, another history, is going into the National Football Foundation College Football Hall of Fame this year. And he'll be the Georgia honorary captain, which is great history. And obviously Vince Dooley, who was our great friend, was the AD then, who we celebrated his 90th birthday on the field at the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. So the other thing is Mark Rick will be going into the Peach Bowl Hall of Fame this year. So we'll be hosting not only the Champ Bailey, but the rest of the National Football Foundation College Football Hall of Famers at our game this year, as well as the Dodd Coaches of the Year will be hosted at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. So a lot of activities going on. Let me tell you a little bit about our game. Obviously, to have number 1 against number 4, with Georgia playing in its second consecutive semifinal game. This is only the second meeting between these two teams. They played in 1993 in the Citrus Bowl. So kind of interesting to have two huge brands, probably two of the best 5, if not best 2 top 10 teams in the history of college football playing in our game this year in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Talk about players, having 2 of the 4 Heisman Trophy finalists, and I think the last count was about 10 All-Americans playing in our game is really special for us. And I've always said styles make fights, and so when you're talking about the nation's second best scoring offense against the second best scoring defense in the country in Georgia, and you're talking about the 13th scoring defense in Ohio State against the 11th ranked scoring offense in Georgia, that makes for a great game on New Year's Eve, December 31st at 8 o'clock in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We've got game day coming, the SEC Network, Big Ten Network. Everybody will be there for the game. 2020-21, if it's anything like that, going down to a last kick, most of our games, 53% of our games have been decided by a touchdown or less in our 55-year history. We've sold out 22 of the last 24 games, thanks to the great fan support we have in Atlanta, which a lot of media call us the capital of college football. That's one of the reasons. Just great fans, the College Football Hall of Fame, the SEC Championship, obviously the Chick-fil-A kickoff game, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. We're the 4th largest convention town in the United States in Atlanta, Georgia, behind Las Vegas, Chicago, and Orlando. And to have 4 of the top 6 conventions in Atlanta, that's how big college football, economic impact-wise, means to the city, especially coming out of COVID. Our payout will be $6 million. So nice check for Josh, particularly since they just have to take Uber over, and we'll save a lot of money in expenses. And then talking about the bowl game, we were founded in 1968, the 9th oldest bowl game in the country, and we were founded by the Lions Lighthouse to give back to charity. Unlike some of the other bowls, the Rose, Sugar, Orange, Cotton, a lot of those bowls were created for tourism, which we do. We'll provide probably about $100 million of economic impact this year between our 2 kickoff games and our Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. But we were founded to give back, and we do so humbly. It's our mission. And we've given $60 million back to charity and foundation since 2002, which is more than any other bowl organization in the country. And we'll give $6 million this year to charity, which is a lot more than any other bowl game in the country. We're also proud to announce that we'll donate $100,000 to endow a scholarship at the University of Georgia, which we already have endowed one. But this will be one that will be a part of our John Lewis Legacy of Courage Scholarship, which those scholarship monies go to kids from Title I programs, schools that are underprivileged kids that don't have the money to go to college. This year alone, we've given $293,000 out through those endowed scholarships, which are at 34 universities throughout the country. Ohio State will be a new one that we'll add. And so that $100,000 will go into the existing endowed scholarship program. With that, what I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to, and hopefully he accepts, offer a letter of invitation to Josh Brooks to play in the 55th Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, which is the CFP semifinal game. So Josh, I hope you'll accept this invitation.
I do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. First of all,
I want to thank Gary. I don't think many people know this, that when we had the game scheduled with Oregon, the neutral site kickoff, and we knew it was Coach Lilly's birthday, reached out to Gary and said, hey, I've got an idea. We'd really like to celebrate Coach's birthday and do some things. And he took the ball and ran with it and really did a first-class job of celebrating Coach. And I know that meant a lot to his family, so I just want to thank you for that. That was very special to him and them. This game is really special to me. A little more trivia. This was my first bowl game as a student 22 years ago, and it was my first bowl game as an AD 2 years ago. So this bowl game is really special, obviously in our own state, in Mercedes-Benz, and this Gary and his staff, all of them, do a phenomenal job. Hospitality, it matches up with the Chick-fil-A model and how they operate, and we're so grateful of you and everyone and how you treat us. And I know that we didn't get the full experience of 2020, so I know that our student athletes, our staff, our families, we're really excited to get to experience this bowl game. It's one of the best in the way you treat and take care of everyone. So I know it's going to be a great experience and obviously a great game. And we could have used some more tickets. We'll take as many as we can get, but obviously it's a testament to our fan base, how well they support our program, and just excited to kick things off. And now I'll turn it over to Coach Smart.
Thanks, Josh and Gary. I appreciate it. Happy and fired up to have an opportunity to play in what I've always thought is one of the best bowls in the country, because Atlanta is home to so much of college football, especially when you've been part of the SEC. So it makes for an awesome opportunity. Our players are excited for the opportunity to play in a CFP semifinal against an opponent that we all have immense respect for. You know, Ohio State is one of the premier teams in the country. Coach Day's done a fabulous job with his team in terms of recruiting across the country, putting out NFL talent, and playing in the CFP over recent history. So challenge lays in front of us, and our guys are excited to do it, but we're honored to be in this game. I know a lot about the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and have for a long time, and like Gary mentioned, having played in it, coached in it, and been around it, it's pretty special when you get an opportunity to play in it in your own state.
How much of an influence do you see from Coach Leach?
Yeah, his impact is wide and broad. You know, he traveled all over the country to coach. He went from the bottom right down at Valdosta State to all the way up to Washington State, you know, and coached all over the country. And, you know, his impact is really felt more in the high school level, I think, because we see what the vision that he had in terms of passing the ball, throwing the ball from his young years with Coach Mummy all the way through now. But what you don't see is the trickle-down effect that he's had where we go watch a high school team play, and the elements of his offensive system are pervasive. I mean, it's like all over the place. And, you know, it changed the game from when years ago it was wishbone, triple option, and you couldn't watch a high school game without wing tee, veer option, triple option, wishbone, to now you actually see more air raid elements than you do those. And he had a large part to do with that, and a special man, and heartfelt, you know, feelings out going out to his family, his wife, and his kids.
Kirby, when will you guys start practicing for this game? And then when you do, Ladd and Warren McClendon, what will their statuses be at that point?
We've been practicing, so I mean, we've not specifically for Ohio State. We've been practicing to maintain staying in shape and making sure our guys are ready, sharp physically, and ready to do things. So we've kind of been practicing ongoing, and you know, I don't know when exactly we'll get those guys back. I don't know that. They're not practicing with us right now. They're conditioning, they're running, they're moving around, but they're not practicing just yet. But we're still, I guess, 16, 17 days out.
Yeah, in a similar vein, an update on Marvin Jones Jr. and then Bill Norton. Is he practicing with the team, or once you go in the portal, you are no longer practicing?
I don't think there's a set standard on that, so that's not really important. We're worried about the guys that are getting ready to play. Marvin Jones has been great. He's run, he's conditioned, he's been doing a ton of conditioning things with us on the side. Probably going to be able to start practicing with us here soon, if not today.
know this time of year is always big for younger players getting practice. Has anybody really caught your eye in what they've been able to do through the practices to this point?
They all have. They do a great job working. It's great to put them at the forefront and let them get quality reps where they're not necessarily the scout team. They make up the 2s and the 3s and sometimes the 4s in some positions that get a lot of reps and a lot of growth. And this is, at the end of the day, almost another set of spring practice. We get 15 practices for a spring practice. We may not get that many in, but we get a lot of practices in once you include walkthroughs. So I've seen these guys have exponential growth and really become good players before spring even starts.
Kirby, after losing 15 guys to the NFL, at what point this year did you maybe realize this team was capable of putting together a run like this? And can you just expound a little bit on your decision not to go into the transfer portal to get help? I think you guys were the only team in the FBS that didn't.
Well, we didn't make a decision not to go in. We called and recruited several guys that fit our criteria. Number 1, need. Number 2, culture. Number 3, we knew something about them out of high school. They'd been on our campus, but we didn't get any of those guys. So it wasn't a philosophy. It was more of that's the way it played out. As far as this team, I thought in the spring we were going to have a good team. We were a long way away defensively from where we needed to be during the spring, but I knew we had a good football team. I knew we had a good football team when the season ended last year because we have a core of good players.
Kirby, you guys have obviously gone up against some good receivers. I'm curious what your impressions are of Marvin Harrison Jr., watching him, what kind of challenge he presents.
All those guys, really good receivers, not just him, across the board. Very talented, probably one of the most talented groups we faced. When you combine it with the talent of the quarterback, it really grows because he has the ability to get the ball to him on all parts of the field, vertically, horizontally, side to side. Really good job. Historically, Ohio State's had great wideouts, and that's that. When you go to play Ohio State, you know they're going to have really good wideouts. When you look across the NFL, they've produced a lot of really good wideouts, and that's no different than what they have on their roster right now.
Coach of Buster Faulkner taking the job at Georgia Tech. Will he still be at all involved in the program leading up to the bowl game? And if not, does Mike Bobo's position or job, whatever you want to call it, kind of get increased a little bit?
We're going to determine that probably at a later date. Still in conversation with Buster and Brent. It's not something that's pressing right now because he doesn't really get to do anything at practice. So we're practicing right now. He's a supplement to ideas with Coach Monken, and he can certainly still do that from the position he's in, and we'll determine that at a later date.
Yeah, Kirby, you talked a lot towards the beginning of this year of all those guys that might not have been huge contributors last year stepping up into bigger roles this year. What has it been like watching the growth from those guys like Pop and Zion, Logan, all those guys that have had to step up this year to get y'all to where you are now?
It's great. The maturation process, really, Zion was already very mature and a leader before this year. He's kind of earned it and done it. He's been around here a while. A lot of guys have stepped up to give us an opportunity to be where we are. A lot of coaches have done a fabulous job. We took on 4 new coaches, had 13 or whatever it was guys leaving the portal, and we've had a lot of guys step up. We've had a freshman class who a lot of them came in last year at this time, and they have been major contributors. I think we had the 3rd most or 4th most true freshman snaps. So we did a good job of onboarding our incoming freshmen to give us depth behind the guys we had on our team. So I think that's a big part of college football right now, how fast you can transition your team each year.
Kirby, what offenses have you faced that might have some of the elements that Ohio State has, and what lessons are there for you in maybe some past games?
I'm not sure who to relate them to. They're different probably than really anybody we faced maybe in years past, but I can't say they're exactly like anybody we've played this year.
Kirby, last week Stetson becomes the first Georgia player to be a finalist for the Heisman in 30 years. Just as someone who's been around this program for a long time, and especially you being there to see what Stetson has gone through, just what did that accomplishment mean to you to see Stetson get a chance to go to New York?
It's a great honor for his resiliency. I mean, to be named one of the 4 finalists, I don't know anybody could have written a script with what he's done in terms of start to finish with trials, tribulations, ups and downs, highs and lows throughout his career. To have that be near the end of it is pretty special. You know, it's special for Georgia. It's special for our program, our university, and it's special for Stetson and his family because, you know, he earned it by the way he played on the field.
Kirby, you talked a lot over the years about accelerated schedules in terms of recruiting, and now we throw the portal on it, we throw NIL on it. Transfer policies have changed. My question is about retention of players. So maybe a scenario could be way off here, like a guy like Nolan Smith injured. Maybe an NIL deal gets put together, or Cedric Van Pran. What can you offer? Can you offer these guys NIL money? Can you offer them insurance policies? And how quickly do you got to determine this, because you're looking in the portal for needs as well, right? So I guess I'm just kind of wondering about that process and what you can do to maybe make it worthwhile for a guy to come back to improve his draft stock.
Complicated question. I really don't know, honestly, how to answer it, and it's not like pressing need. I mean, we have a process that we follow, so our process is step by step. I mean, there's a day in the month of each calendar month that I go through and say, okay, it's time to do this. It's time to have this conversation. It's time to gather this information. It's time to educate our players on this in this process. And I think communication is the key on that. I mean, you referenced Nolan. I mean, I'm confused because Nolan's kind of done. You know, he's through playing. Now, if you're talking about this time last year, sure, we have conversations with every player that has eligibility remaining. And I think you're juggling a spreadsheet that I keep, we keep, that has what each guy's doing and where their eligibility is, and over here where each guy potentially that could come in. And you're trying to match, you know, inflow and outflow. It's essentially what you're trying to do, but NIL is a part of that, but NIL is not, you know, it may be dangled as a carrot at some places, but really it's about, do you want to be part of this team? Do you want to grow and get better? Do you want a chance to do what Devontae Wyatt did? Do you want a chance to do what Chris Smith did? Do you want to have a chance to do what Jordan Davis did? Do you want to have a chance to do what Quay Walker did? So, like, there's great opportunities to move from a late round draft pick with your grade to early round draft pick, and that's not really what I'm concerned with right now. I'm concerned with making sure our football team is developing at all stages and phases, because we have guys that are in the stage of, man, he's going to have to start next year. He really needs to get ready. And then there's the phases is offense, defense, special teams. You know, how are we improving? That's my focus. It's not on, really not on NIL, not on portal, not on those things, because the focus is on our team.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Take a quick photo, and then we're going to bring Jerry back up and take any questions you have for him. This is for you. We're actually going to leave this little souvenir for you.
Sure.
Video, you guys good? All right, let's get Kirby. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. Yeah, just a couple of points. On our Live, Laugh, and Learn, everything's a reward for our players. We want them to live great, stay in great hotels, travel first class, play in a first class facility, get great gifts, eat great food like Chick-fil-A. That's number one in our Live. Laugh, we have our Battle for Bowl Week, which is a 40-pound WWE belt that we give away every night based on the competition. These kids are going through a week of practice and video, and so to lighten things up in the evening after the events, we have a competition against the other team. And then Learn, there's two things that we do. One is take them to Children's Healthcare, where those kids didn't get out of the hospital for Christmas and may never get out of that hospital. So for the coaches and the players to give back during the holiday to those families and those kids is awfully important. And then lastly, this year at Ebenezer Baptist Church, in the actual pews, well, you're not supposed to do this as a bowl, but we bring both teams together and sit them next to each other in the pews at Ebenezer Baptist, where Dr. King spoke from the pulpit, and his mother got shot and died there at the organ. It's a very, very special place. And this year we'll have Ambassador Andy Young, who was part of the original 8 people involved with Dr. King in the civil and human rights movement, and Bill Curry, who played for Coach Lombardi and Coach Shula, who has a book out, if you're a reader, 10 Men in the Huddle, where he talks about, you have a black kid from Compton, and you got a white kid from the hills of North Carolina, and you got a Jew and a Christian and a Catholic all in the huddle together. And none of that really matters once you're in the huddle, because it's all about teamwork. It's all about togetherness. And in such a divisive society that we live in, it's a great message for these kids to hear from Bill Curry, but also from Andy Young about what actually took place in the civil and human rights movement, because these kids weren't even born. And so it's a living history lesson. So we're in the college experience. We're in the collegiate enterprise here. And so we want these kids to have a history lesson, which they'll get that evening. So Live, Laugh, and Learn. Our media day is 29th in the College Football Hall of Fame, so you're all invited there. And then December 30th, I think, is our media party, where we'll host everybody. So anything we can do, obviously Matt is in charge of that, but I'll make myself available, and whatever we can do, obviously we want to provide service to you guys and make this a memorable experience for the media as well. So thank you.
Yeah, any questions for Gary? We can take those now, or yeah.
Hey Gary, I mean, obviously you've done an unbelievable job at Peach Bowl. You're top of the line bowl executive. I'm sure you talked with some of the other leaders about the players out there. Now, obviously this is a playoff game, so it's not an issue. But last year, Michigan State lost their greatest player, Kenneth Walker. Hits the quarterback doesn't show up. What can the Bulls do to combat, or is it an issue to combat? I mean, what's available to you to players to play bowl?
Yeah, I've expressed this. Obviously, we went through it, like you mentioned, last year with Kenny Pickett and Kenneth Walker, who were both first-team All-Americans. Both were hurt at the end of the year, like most players are hurt, banged up at the end of the year. It's one of the unintended consequences that I think everybody in college football has to be aware of this playoff. If you're going to play 12 teams in a playoff, everybody's banged up at the end of the year, and now you're going to play a first-round game for some teams, then a quarter, and then a semi and a championship game. I think there needs to be taken into consideration, insurance of some kind to protect these kids, because when you get that first-round draft card now, you're talking about generational money. Hutchinson from Michigan signed for $20 million. Well, that's generational money. So for these kids to play another 4 games, I think either a relationship with the NFL or through the CFP or letting the colleges through the NCAA do something more insurance-wise to make sure these kids are protected and they do play in the playoff, I think it's something that needs to be taken into consideration. It was interesting. I've spoken about this liberally. I think college football needs its own commissioner, and I would create a board that's comprised of 2 coaches, 2 commissioners, 2 student athletes, those people would drive the business. We need to create a vision of college football. We're the second most favorite sport in this country, behind the NFL, without a vision. We have in 1 month signing date, transfer portal, bowls, coaches changing jobs. That's not the way to run the business, right? It is an enterprise, and we're doing things tied to the top 1 or 2% who are going to play in the NFL. We need to worry about the other 98% that aren't going to play in the NFL that have to pick up a lunch pail. So in my eyes, these collectives shouldn't be for kids on the front side to come to your school. They should be there on the back side. These donors and alumni should be giving these kids jobs that aren't going to go to the NFL. That's what we should be doing. We're college. Get the kid the degree, and then once he gets his degree, get him a job and let him form, be a great person in society. That's 98% of the people out there. And I don't know what the number is, how many college football players we have, but if you take 2% to the NFL, there's thousands of kids out there. And that's just football. We need to be doing that in volleyball and, lacrosse and everything else. We're a college enterprise. And, my belief is we need to continue to reinforce that rather than move to a professionalized format or structure. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but that's my personal belief. Yeah, Sunday we find out, like everybody else. We find out on Sunday. We've obviously had calls with pretty much the top 12 schools going through our institutional guide of the events and where they'd be staying, et cetera, and the ticket people. So they know what the allotment is. We go 50-yard line up and over with 13,000 tickets for each school. And Georgia sold out on Monday. So they had one day and they sold out. And I got a call from Josh before the SEC championship game, hey, can you help me? Because I'm going to need some more tickets. So it's a great problem to have, but it's a problem. We all wish we had more tickets. I've had to tell a lot of people that, I don't have any tickets, which is tough. But we have added 2,000 more. We're using all the expandables on both sidelines and in the end zone. So we'll probably get up to about 78,000, maybe a little bit more potential, which maxes out pretty much Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Any last questions for Gary? So 26,000 allotted to the schools, 2,000 where's the most go to?
Yeah, so there's pockets. You've got sponsors, right? You got comp tickets. You have trade outs. You've got Mercedes-Benz, which their PSL holders have the rights to buy tickets to the game. We've got a huge renewal base after all these years of selling out all those years. So that's probably the big chunks of where the tickets have gone. And we were sold out in July before we even knew who the two teams were. And I think a lot of people in our renewal base, they'll buy the tickets waiting to see who the teams are, and if they like the teams, they'll use the tickets, or if they have a friend who's an alumnus of one of those schools or a business associate, they give the tickets to them. Or, as we've learned, all of us who buy tickets, the secondary market becomes the primary market.
Anything else for Gary?
Thank you.